want to say thank you to everybody for being here. Just outside of Virginia, we drove up. I got out of the car and the first thing I saw was a very small snowbank. I'm not certain I appreciated that. But we're here today to talk about miners. And I want to say right out of the box, let miners mine. Mining is not a chapter in a Minnesota history book. Mining is a book to be written about Minnesota's future and our sizzling economy that we're going to drive forward. Mining has been done for more than a century here in the range. I've had the privilege of taking care of miners from a healthcare perspective when I used to moonlight at White Memorial Hospital in Aurora. I was always struck by what miners want. They want the same things my wife and I want. They want to feel free. They want to take care of their families. They want to be able to elevate their faith. They want to be able to have a roof over their head. They want the same things over and over again through an overextended, literally irresponsible permitting and regulatory process. Miners and mining companies have not been allowed to do that which they do very well. People talk to me about, well, we have to steward the land. Folks, you know who stewards the land the best? The people who live here, the people who raise their children here, the people who pray and hope that their grandchildren will be raised here. That's who stewards the land. So I want to say it again. We're going to let miners mine. Tim Walz may want Minnesota to be a spectator in the industry of mining, and he's wrong. Minnesota's not going to be a spectator. We're going to be a leader, and we're going to be a leader because of the Minnesota Northern miners. And I'm going to say it right now. The right to work is no part of our program. We are here to make certain that union miners get a chance to mine and that the world can benefit from one of the largest reserves of nickel in the world. 95% of our country's nickel. And for those who think that we can lean on other countries to produce that which we could produce and allow all of a sudden places that might use child slave labor and to think that that's okay, how horrifically hypocritical that would be. I've asked Congressman Pete Stauber to be here with me. And before I lay out our 10-point plan on how we're going to provide prosperity and energy independence to Minnesota and the northern part of Minnesota, I wanted Congressman Stauber to make some comments. But let me say this. Arguably, in Washington, D.C., there is no one more knowledgeable about all the facets of mining than Congressman Pete Stauber. It's my pleasure to introduce Pete. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jensen, and once again, welcome to the Iron Range. So much appreciate your support for our economic driver that we call mining. We've been mining for 135 years up here in the Iron Range. We won 2 world wars. We mine the iron ore that makes over 80% of this nation's steel. And we have the cleanest water right here on the Iron Range. The fact is, behind us is United Taconite. To my far right is U.S. Steel Mintac, rather. We have the opportunity to really have another boom for the Iron Range. We're going to expand iron ore mining, HIBTech. We need to expand that, and then we're going to mine the Duluth complex. We must mine in the Duluth complex if we expect to transition into alternative sources of energy. As Dr. Jensen talked about, the Duluth complex, 95% of our nickel reserves, 88% of our copper, over a third of platinum group metals. We have the ability to do it here with union miners, with good paying jobs, and bring the economy up for all of us here on the Iron Range. And I am so appreciative, Dr. Jensen, that you're up here once again supporting the Iron Range, supporting one of our major economic drivers, and you have been a fierce competitor, as I say, for our way of life. Thanks for having me, and the podium's yours.
Congressman, before you step aside, would you just make a couple of comments about the kind of investment that Twin Metals and PolyMet have put forth without not even necessarily getting a shovel in the ground?
Well, we look at PolyMet first. PolyMet is into its 19th year of permitting. That's too long. 19 years is a lot of time, and PolyMet has about $600 million invested in just the permitting process and to fight frivolous lawsuits. And then you look at Twin Metals. Twin Metals is in pushing 10 years, and the permitting process costing them money as well. We could get these miners mining these critical minerals so we can help secure the supply chain in this country for those critical minerals that we use every single day. So the permitting reform is going to be not only my priority in Washington, but I know it's going to be your priority as our next governor.
Thank you. When you think about doing business, there's always three ingredients that people have to focus on. Oftentimes we focus first on taxes, second on regulations, and third on the culture. We have to reverse that. We have to reverse that in all of Minnesota, but especially in the northern economy. The culture in which miners and mining companies have to work is horrific. It is absolutely hostile. We need to recognize that we are all in this together. Minnesota wins if mining wins. People don't realize that a good chunk of money goes to every school district in our state because of mining. We are talking about an industry that has the ability to transform Minnesota life and our economy. 19 years PolyMet has been working to mine. We know they will steward the land. Think about this. PolyMet started the permitting process at about the same time that we made our way through that Y2K crisis. At about the same time 911 hit. At about the same time we were getting cell phones that could fit in our pockets. It's been that long. It's time to stop, and that's why we're here. We've got a 10-point plan, and I want to run through them very quickly. And this is for, if you will, prosperity and energy independence, but it's to specifically focus on the northeastern part of Minnesota. First, we are going to support unabashedly and unapologetically mining and energy production. And when I talk about energy production, I want to remind you that when we talk about batteries, we're not talking about energy production, we're talking about energy storage. And if we want to move forward with some of the initiatives that so many people are talking about, Democrats and Republicans alike, we have got to enhance the technology that goes into our batteries. And that's only going to happen if we push forward the mining that needs to take place. We need to support the timber industry. Let loggers log. If people would actually look at the count of trees in Minnesota from year to year, every year it's going up. When a place is logged, when they're done, there'll be more trees than when they started. We need to expand job opportunities. We need to bring in capital investments. There is so much we can do, and there are people standing on the sidelines just waiting. But when they watch PolyMet deal with 19 years and $500 million and not be able to put a shovel in the ground, you can imagine how disenchanting and disillusioning this is. We need to promote employment. We certainly have not done that. I remember in the days when I used to moonlight over at White Memorial Hospital in Aurora. These folks were being denied employment. They were being denied the opportunity to take care of their family. They were oftentimes being told, oh, well, we'll take care of you. Folks up here are not looking at entitlement programs. They want a life, they want to be able to dream dreams, and they've been denied that opportunity. We need to improve access to opportunities, we need to promote energy production, and we need to save the Boswell energy plants. We need to support pipelines. When you don't support pipelines to transport oil, fuel, you're basically saying, on the law of supply and demand, we are going to decrease the supply. We're going to know that the demand is going to stay, and that is going to be inflationary beyond belief. And that is exactly what Tim Walz has done. He has driven the cost of our fuel up. because he is absolutely flying in the face of one of the most simple economic laws ever known to man, and that's the law of supply and demand. Decrease the supply, the demand stays there, boom, prices go up. This is not rocket science, Tim Walz. We need to improve job training. We need to do a better job in terms of our high schools, so that as our kids are leaving high school, they get a full menu of choices. College, as far as I'm concerned, as a kid who went to college, struggled and had to find my way, college is being oversold. We need to make sure that our high school juniors and seniors have a full breadth of a menu of opportunities. And one of those opportunities can be job training and intersecting workforce needs with the very real thing that should be happening in high schools. And lastly, we need to promote Minnesota tourism. I'm going to ask Congressman Stauber to make one or two comments about some of the tourism opportunities that come when mines are done and there, if you will, the land is once again restored. It's unbelievably beautiful. Could you just comment about water and water quality and things like that?
Well, as I mentioned, Dr. Jensen, we have the cleanest water anywhere in the state, in the heart, right here in the heart of the Iron Range. And you talk about recreation opportunities. If you go to Chisholm, the Redhead Bike Trail, it's unbelievable. We were there just a couple weeks ago, and the people walking and enjoying riding their bikes on that trail was awesome to see. And then we look also at the reclaimed mines. We do it better than anybody in the world. We reclaim mines here on the Iron Range. When we reclaim them, there's bear, there's deer, there's wolf, there's eagles, there's bees, there's birds. We cut hay on some of the reclaimed mines, and I think it's important to recognize that when we do that, the recreational opportunities will be there. The Iron World in Chisholm is abundantly filled with tourists and people that want to recreate to come there and ride those bikes, and it's going to bring good jobs and good opportunities, and again, more prosperity because of mining.
Thank you. And I would say one thing. I was asked on a radio interview earlier today. Someone said, well, you can't do all that you want to do, Dr. Jensen, without going through the feds. Are you sure that you can make it happen? And I said, yes, I am. I am convinced that if Minnesotans vote November 8th for a citizen economy and good paying jobs all across the board, I'll be able to lean into the work of Congressman Stauber at the federal level, and we will clear blockades and barricades. We will open things up. We will get the feds to help move along that permitting and regulatory process, because right now we're going to focus on improving the culture in which miners and mining companies work. We're going to reduce the regulations, streamline the permitting and licensing process. We're not going to allow the goalposts to be moved. And yes, we're going to deal with taxes as well. But quite frankly, the biggest burden right now is the culture and the oppressive regulatory structure that mining has had to deal with. So with that, I'd be glad to stand for any questions. And I want to say thanks again to Congressman Stauber for lending us expertise and for all of you coming. Any questions? Yes, sir. You in the back.
Yes. What would your statement be about what's happening in North Dakota and processing of resources from Minnesota?
That's a great question. Thank you, sir. Imagine this. We mine nickel from Minnesota mines. And instead of allowing us to process that nickel and be efficient and create downstream industries, potentially even having end user industries here in Minnesota, manufacturing. Instead of doing that, what we're seeing happen literally in the last few days is the U.S. Department of Energy providing a huge bolus of some $113 million so that North Dakota can create a plant whereby Minnesota minerals will be processed. Why? Because Governor Walz says that he follows the science, and in that regard, he stops the whole process from a regulatory perspective. Does Governor Walz honestly think that the science stops at the Minnesota-North Dakota border? Honestly? Does Governor Walz think that North Dakotans don't understand science? That would be pretty arrogant if that's what he thought. But what Minnesotans could take to the bank right now is that over $100 million are going to North Dakota for them to create an industry that belongs right here. It would be far more efficient rather than mine it here, ship it by rail over to North Dakota. We could have had it here. But because of the attitude of Tim Walz and the hard left agenda, Minnesotans are suffering, families don't have jobs, and we're losing opportunities. I'm going to ask Congressman Stauber if he'd like to comment on that as well.
Well, Dr. Jensen, you did a very fine job of explaining the permitting process and not following the science. We've always said, let's follow the facts, the science, and the truth. And you're absolutely right. We can process those minerals right here on the Iron Range and in Minnesota, as well as mine them right here. We are blessed with an abundance of critical minerals and iron ore here on the Iron Range, and it's about time that we really fight to bring that economy here to Minnesota. That makes so much sense to mine and process here.
I'm going to challenge my friend Congressman Stauber to help me out on an initiative that we haven't been able to get done as of yet, so I'm going to give him a homework assignment. A while back, our team tweeted Elon Musk, and we said, come here to Minnesota. Use the minerals that we mine. We can process. Build your next Tesla manufacturing facility right here in northern Minnesota. Let's dare to be the absolute best and color outside the lines. Congressman Stauber, I think you probably have the contacts that you could maybe help get Mr. Musk to come and visit us and see about the prospect of doing that.
Well, I think that I have been in contact with leadership at Tesla, talking about them and how critical minerals are part of their electric vehicles, and they're excited, obviously, with the Talon Metals and investing there. And I'm trying to get not only them but other companies to look at the great minerals we have here on the Iron Range.
That's a perfect place to do. One more question? I'll go and then we'll close.
Question. With the big population in the Twin Cities, kind of the declining population in this area, perhaps other parts of rural Minnesota, how important is the Iron Range to you in the rural areas, and what kind of response have you been seeing?
It's a great question. The question deals with the great divide between greater Minnesota and the highly dense urbanized areas. People might think that what's happening is just a natural process that has to happen. I would go a different direction. I grew up in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota, in the southern part of the state, and agribusiness cries out for the same things that miners cry out. Farmers want to farm, miners want to mine, loggers want to log. The more densely we concentrate our population in small areas, the more susceptible, the more vulnerable we are in many ways as a society. I have said over and over again, over my dead body, will I allow foreign corporations to buy family farms? I would have that same kind of attitude, and that's why it grieves me so deeply to see the prospect of Minnesota mining getting the, if you will, the minerals out of the land and then having to ship them elsewhere to be processed and utilized. I think that we make a terrible mistake to think that we can deplete greater Minnesota of its citizens, of its young people. We've got to do a far better job of making sure young people understand that there's tremendous opportunities in the northern part of the state. Whether you're talking about, when you talk about mining, you're talking about research, you're talking about sales, you're talking about finance, you're talking about the actual work. There are so many things that could be done. In farming, you could say the same thing. The agribusiness has the opportunity for research, technology, finance, sales. I mean, look at the additives, the treatments that we use to the seeds, to the land, to the crops, all of these things. Minnesota will be stronger if we have a population that occupies all of Minnesota. Geographically, we are a large state, and we want people living, thriving, and flourishing all over the state. That's how we will be strongest. And that's one of the problems I think the highly urbanized areas get. They don't even realize that it's so easy to sort of fall into your own echo chamber, and you're just thinking, oh, this is what we're going to do, this is what, and we'll tell those people in greater Minnesota, we'll tell them how to farm and how to mine and how to log. It doesn't work that way. They have no expertise in that area. Again, I'll just say it this way. If you want to know who stewards the land the best, who utilizes it the best, who replenishes it the best, it's the people who live there. Thank you. Folks, I want to say thank you again, Congressman Stauber. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
You betcha.
it. Thank you.